Hey guys, so today we are talking about the DJI Ronin SC compared against my Zhiyun Crane first generation. And if you're anything like me, you aren't the first to go out and buy a product the moment it's announced. You wait a couple of years and wait for that price to decrease, and that's exactly what happened with this DJI Ronin SC. Best Buy had decreased the price, I bought it, and that's why we're here. So let's get started. So before we hop into it, I just want to disclaim that neither DJI or Zhiyun are sponsoring this video. These are just my quick thoughts on these products, hoping to give you guys some information on whether or not you should upgrade or stay with your current gimbal. So first up, build quality. I noticed right away when I opened up the Ronin SC box that the Ronin SC itself felt very solid. It felt very sturdy in my hands. However, I do feel like if I dropped this thing a couple of times, it probably would break, or it probably would get pretty beat up and not last very long, as opposed to the first generation Zhiyun Crane. I've had this guy for about 3 years now, and the finish on it feels almost metallic. I'm not sure what it is, but it feels rock solid. I know personally I have dropped this thing quite a few times on accident, obviously. I've tossed it into my gear bag, I've thrown it around, and it has lasted me perfectly for 3 years. On top of that, I bought this guy used. So it had already been in use for a year before even I had it, and it's lasted me this long. Unfortunately, I don't feel like I have the same amount of confidence for the Ronin SC, but it does still feel very solid. So for you guys out there, I would not toss this guy just in your gear bag with your tripods. I would have its own case or keep it safe somewhere, and that way you can ensure long-lasting life. So battery runtime between the Ronin SC and the Zhiyun Crane first gen is actually pretty similar. The Ronin SC has around 11 hours of usage, while the Zhiyun Crane has around 12 hours. So ergonomics of the Ronin SC are pretty good. When you hold the gimbal in your hands, it feels very tactile. It feels like you can have a solid grip on the gimbal and it's going nowhere. So I really like that. And I really like also that they added the locking mechanisms for each individual axis arm. I think that really goes a long way with speeding up the balancing process in between camera setups. My only gripe with DJI on the Ronin SC is that for some reason they combined the locking mechanism to move your camera left or right along with tightening your camera's quick release plate onto the gimbal. So for some reason, whenever you adjust your camera left or right to kind of fine tune that balancing, in the back of your mind, you're worrying that your camera is going to slip out of their quick release and fall off your gimbal. Now, when you compare this to the Zhiyun Crane first gen, the ergonomics of that gimbal are still pretty good. However, I do have some gripes when seeing how much better they can be with the Ronin SC. So first off, with the Zhiyun Crane, it is a lot sleeker of a design. It's much skinnier as far as where you hold, but I don't really like that. I feel like when I hold that gimbal, it's harder for me to get a good grip on it because it's a lot smoother, and so tactile wise, that feeling in your hands, it doesn't really feel like, you know, you can hold on to it really tight. Whereas the Ronin SC, you know, once you hold that gimbal in your hands, I feel like the form factor, the way they built it, really fits in your hand very well. On top of that, because of the much sleeker design on the Zhiyun Crane, it does feel a bit more top heavy when trying to do camera moves with that gimbal. On top of that, with the Ronin SC, you do have a much more tactile joystick for moving the camera with your fingers, and I think compared to the first gen Zhiyun Crane, it is leaps and bounds much better. Now, I do understand that the Ronin SC is leaps and bounds much newer than the first gen Zhiyun Crane, but I'm speaking to audiences who have not upgraded yet. For me, myself personally, I'm not one to buy the next wave of products the moment they are announced. I tend to hold on to cameras, lenses, or even gear a few years to kind of see, you know, what's out there. And for me, I don't want to spend a whole lot of money to upgrade just to get one more feature that I didn't have or two more features that I didn't have. When I upgrade, I usually want to see something that will significantly change the way I shoot. And for me, I felt that buying the Ronin SC, especially when it was discounted, was the way to go. Now, the Ronin SC does come packed with a lot of features that enable you to connect your camera to your gimbal to allow for button recording straight from the gimbal arm, Also, when paired with your smartphone to allow for cool follow features with your subjects, etc. But I'll link the DJI website below for you guys to read all about that. Now, I can definitely talk a lot more about the Ronin SC, but let's bring this outside and see just what it can do. Now, here I have my good buddy Devin, who is one of my first ACs that I use on my shoots, and he was kind enough to be stand-in for me while testing the Ronin SC. Now here we're just doing a couple of quick walk and talks that you might do either for a film or maybe even a music video, and we can kind of see here just how smooth the Ronin SC is. While walking just at normal speed, this does feel very clean. Keep in mind, I am shooting on a Sony A7 III, and we do have in-camera stabilization on. I did forget to turn that off, but there is no post stabilization such as warp stabilizer from After Effects. This is just straight out of camera. So looking at this, again, it does feel very smooth. I don't see a whole lot of camera jitter, and this is great because the Ronin SC is definitely the little brother to the Ronin S, which is much bigger and does feel a bit more solid. But as a cheap and affordable option, as you can see here, the Ronin SC is very smooth. Now, comparing this to the first gen Zhiyun Crane, we do see a lot more camera jitter just with those micro movements here. We do see a lot of the movement from walking. It is very subtle, but it is definitely there. Now, also one big thing that I noticed with the Ronin SC is that with general movements, it does take more motion to kind of activate those gimbal sensors to really move the camera. And so it does move a lot slower, whereas with the Zhiyun Crane, every little movement you do, the camera is wanting to go here or there. And so I think that is adding to those micro camera jitters that you do see. I think when doing a walk and talk, you can still get by with just the Zhiyun Crane. But as you can see, compared to the Ronin SC, it is lacking a bit. Now, when doing much faster shots where you're kind of jogging or walking really fast, I do see that the Ronin SC holds up pretty well. We do see some micro camera jitters here and there, but it's still very subtle. Now compare this to the Zhiyun Crane and we definitely see it kind of start to fall apart. It does feel a bit more like a glide cam in this scenario than it does an actual traditional gimbal. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot of time to get these shots. As you see, the sun was going down, and so I think this wraps up my quick review of the Ronin SC. I think bottom line, if you're on a budget and you don't quite have the cash, I don't think you really have a strong need to upgrade from the first gen Zhiyun Crane if you're holding on to it to the Ronin SC. I think, again, the Zhiyun Crane holds up very well with simple walk and talk shots. If you are trying to do more fast, precise camera movements, then you might need something a bit better. But for simple stuff, the Zhiyun Crane works perfectly fine. Now for me, with the Ronin SC going on sale, I do feel like it was worth the purchase because I do shoot a lot of commercials, a lot of music videos, and a lot of short films, and I am in need of those much more smooth camera movements, and I feel like I get that from the Ronin SC. Is it perfect? Is it smooth like butter? No, but it is much better. So if you do have some cash lying around, I would definitely suggest possibly thinking about upgrading to the Ronin SC. And guys, that is it for today. Thank you for watching my quick review of the Ronin SC against the first gen Zhiyun Crane. If you guys want to check out the DJI Ronin SC, I do have an affiliate link in the description below. By purchasing it through that link, it does help support the channel, so please check it out. And guys, that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, guys, and also leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. And last but not least, guys, if you have not yet, please subscribe to the channel. It does help support it, and it keeps you guys updated each week when I release new videos. And guys, that is it. I'll see you next time. Hey, if you want to support the channel, we do have a Teespring account where we sell a bunch of merch like coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweaters, and more. And with every purchase, we get commission, which goes to help support the content that we bring you guys. Definitely check it out, guys, and start repping some swag.